Welcome to Simpler Bible, a daily journey to biblical understanding. In the last couple of days, I have referenced for us Isaiah 33. Today we're in Isaiah 33. And Isaiah 33 is going to remind us of another couple of texts that we've already looked at. In fact, if I had been more thorough when we looked at Psalm 15 and Psalm 24, I would have also included Isaiah 33. I don't think that I did that very well, so we're going to do that better today. So Isaiah 33, call it the consuming fire, and we just heard yesterday and then a couple of days ago, we heard God say something like, he's going to consume these enemies, he's going to be like a fire to them, that kind of thing. So pick up with me here in Isaiah 33, verse 1. Ah, you destroyer, who yourself have not been destroyed, you traitor, whom none has betrayed. When you have ceased to destroy, you will be destroyed, and when you have finished betraying, they will betray you. O Lord, be gracious to us. We wait for you. Be our arm every morning, our salvation in the time of trouble. Remember yesterday we saw that the people were not waiting for God, and he said, if you would just come to me and rest in me, there would be your salvation. At the tumultuous noise, people flee. When you lift yourself up, the nations are scattered. When God lifts himself up, the nations are scattered. And your spoil is gathered as the caterpillar gathers, as locusts sleep, it is leapt upon. The Lord is exalted, for he dwells on high. He will fill Zion with justice and righteousness, and he will be the stability of your times, the abundance of your salvation, wisdom and knowledge. The fear of the Lord is Zion's treasure. Behold, their heroes cry in the street. Their envoys of peace weep bitterly. The highways lie waste. The traveler ceases. Covenants are broken. Cities are despised. There is no regard for man. The land mourns and it languishes. Lebanon is confounded and withers away. Sharon becomes like a desert, and Bashan and Carmel shake off their leaves. Now I will arise, says the Lord. Now I will lift myself up. Now I will be exalted. You conceive chaff. You give birth to stubble. Your breath is a fire that will consume you. So he's saying all of the stuff. Remember, chaff is a picture in the Bible of the worthless stuff. It's the worthless part of the grain when they're beating the grain, and the little papery kind of chaff, the shell around the grain crumbles off, and they throw, you might not know this, they take like a rake, and they beat the grain, and then they scoop up the grain with the rake, throw it up in the air, and the grain is heavy enough that it falls back to the ground and the chaff blows away. It's carried away by the wind. So they beat the grain and it separates the kernel of the grain from the little kind of papery, fibrous plant shell around it. And then when they throw it up into the air, the wind blows it away. And then the grain, being heavy, falls. That's what threshing the grain is, okay? And so when he talks about the chaff, that's what he's talking about, the part that blows away. So we've already seen in Psalm chapter 1, that the wicked are like the chaff that the wind drives away. And it says, you conceive chaff, you give birth to stubble, your breath is like fire and it will consume you. So you're nothing. You're nothing. You're chaff, you're stubble, the fire is going to consume you. It makes me think a little bit of Isaiah 131, where he says that your work, or that you are tinder and your work is a spark and everything is going to be burned up. So everything that you're doing is of no value and it's going to be consumed. The peoples will be as though burned to lime, like thorns cut down that are burned in the fire. These are the wicked. These are the people who have rebelled against God, or these are the people who have come against the people of God. Hear you who are far off what I have done, and you who are near acknowledge my might. The sinners in Zion are afraid. Trembling has seized the godless. So those who are set against God, and then also the enemies of God. Sinners in Zion are afraid. Trembling has seized the godless. And they ask, who among us can dwell with the consuming fire? Who among us can dwell with the everlasting burnings? So they're recognizing the judgment of God. They're seeing the judgment of God coming, and they're like, who can endure this? Who can survive this? None of us are going to be able to survive the everlasting burnings of God, the consuming fire of God. And then here's the answer of who can endure, who can survive it. He who walks righteously and speaks uprightly, who despises the gain of oppressions, who shakes his hands lest they hold a bribe. I love this imagery, and I think it might not matter to you. Look, as I read through the Bible, there are things that just stick in my head. And so this is talking about the person that can dwell with the consuming fire. And I need you to get that. Not escape the consuming fire, but dwell in the presence of God, who is a consuming fire. Who can dwell with the consuming fire? Him who has clean hands, who walks uprightly, who despises oppression, who shakes his hands out to show that they don't hold a bribe, right? So he's like, look, nothing in my hands. Like, look, nothing up the sleeves, right? That's what he's doing. I don't have a bribe. who stops his ears from hearing of bloodshed, who shuts his eyes from looking on evil. He will dwell on the heights. His place of defense will be the fortress of the rocks. His bread will be given to him, and his water will be sure. Your eyes will behold the king in his beauty, and they will see a land that stretches afar. So who can dwell with the consuming fire? Who can be in the presence of the Lord? This makes me think also a little bit of Hebrews chapter 12, and we're going to say 28 or 29, something like that. It might be even verse 30. But it says, who among us can dwell, or who can dwell with the consuming fire? Hebrews says that our God is a consuming fire. It says, serve your God with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire. And the pictures that should come to mind, who can dwell with the consuming fire, who can stand in his presence, a couple of pictures should come to mind. One of them should be Leviticus chapter 10, where Nadab and Abihu offered profane fire before the Lord and they were consumed. One of them should be Numbers 16, where Korah in his rebellion and the 250 men offered fire before the Lord that he didn't require, and fire burned them up. One of them should be Judges chapter 7. You know what? I said Judges chapter 7. That's actually wrong. It's Joshua chapter 7. Sorry about that. Where Achan was put to death by the fire of the Lord because he had sinned against God. And so who can dwell with the consuming fire? But on the flip side of that, you've got Moses who went up on the mountain, and the mountain that he went up on was covered in smoke, covered in fire, trembling and covered in fire. And Moses went up and met with the Lord. You should think of Hebrews 12, where it says that we have come to Mount Zion, the city of the living God. So who gets to dwell in the presence of the Lord? The righteous, those who have clean hands, who shut their eyes from looking at wickedness and stop their ears from listening to wickedness. And so let me jump down here for a little bit. That should remind us of Psalm 15. So every time you read Psalm 15, every time you read Psalm 24, every time you read Isaiah 33, all three of these places should remind you of the other places. Psalm 15, O Lord, who shall sojourn in your tent? Who shall dwell in your holy hill? What's the question that Isaiah 33 asks? Who can dwell in the presence of the consuming fire? Psalm 15, who can dwell on your holy hill? The one who walks blamelessly, does what is right, speaks truth in his heart, does not slander with his tongue, does no evil, takes up no reproach against his friend, in whose eyes a vile person is despised, but who honors those who fear the Lord and swears to his own hurt, who does not put out his money at interest, does not take a bribe against the innocent. He who does these things will never be moved. So Psalm 15, this is the kind of person that dwells in the house of the Lord. Psalm 24, the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof. Look at verse 3. Who shall ascend the hill of the Lord? Who shall stand in his holy place? He with clean hands and a pure heart, who does not lift his soul up toward his false, does not swear deceitfully. He will receive blessing from the Lord and righteousness from the God of salvation. This is the generation of those who seek him, who seek the face of God. And so these three texts always are tied together in my head. What does it look like to dwell in the presence of the Lord? What does it look like to stand in his holy place? What does it look like to dwell with the consuming fire of God? Who could possibly survive that? Those who have been made righteous. And of course, you and I know that our righteousness is a matter of faith through Jesus Christ. And so, it goes on to say, your heart will muse on the terror. This is verse 18. We're back in Isaiah 33 now. Where is he who counted? Where is he who weighed the tribute? Where is the one who counted the towers? You will see no more the insolent people, the people of an obscure speech that you cannot comprehend, stammering tongue that you cannot understand. Those are the people of foreign tongues. That's the Babylonians. Behold, Zion, the city of our appointed feast. Your eyes will see Jerusalem, an untroubled habitation, an immovable tent, whose stakes will never be plucked up, nor will any of its cords be broken. So Zion is going to be built up to never be destroyed. Pay attention to when it says Zion versus Jerusalem. I feel like most of the time, and I want to say all of the time, but I'm just not that confident in it yet. I feel like most of the time when the prophets are speaking of Zion, they're speaking of the new Jerusalem, the final resting place of God. There's at least an implication where there's a present and a future fulfillment of these things. So I think Zion is probably a reference to the heavenly Jerusalem. Verse 21, but there in Zion, the Lord in majesty will be for us a place of broad rivers and streams where no galley with oars can go and no majestic ships can pass. For the Lord is our judge and he is our lawgiver. The Lord is our king and he will save us. Your cords hang loose. They cannot hold the mast firm in its place or keep the sail spread out. Then prey and spoil in abundance will be divided. Even the lame will take the prey, and no inhabitant will say, I am sick. The people who dwell there will be forgiven of their iniquity. How can that not be the heavenly city of God, right? And look, when it says here the spoil is divided, that'll remind us of something that we'll see later in Isaiah 53, verse, we'll call it 12. Where at the end of the day, we receive an inheritance along with Christ. Heck, that reminds us of Romans 8, 16, and 17. That says, if we are children of God, we are heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ. We receive an inheritance with Christ. And so that's what's happening here at the end of Isaiah 33. But I don't want you to ever read Isaiah 33 without also thinking of Psalm 15 and Psalm 24 or vice versa, because those chapters beautifully fit together. The language is incredibly similar. It's just that Isaiah deals a little bit more with the prophetic judgment of the wicked than does the Psalms that we saw. And so, look, we've had a great week in Isaiah. Don't forget to watch the summary video. Check that out if you need to be reminded of those things. And we'll be back in Isaiah tomorrow. Thank you so much for journeying with us today at Simpler Bible. Together, you and I have looked at another passage of Scripture and come to know the Bible a little bit better and enjoy God more fully. This video, along with all of our videos, can be found at simplerbible.com, where you can enjoy our Through the Bible in a Year course. You can also enjoy a wealth of resources, blog posts that take you a little bit deeper into the text, a Bible study format that you can use with your small groups or your family, and we're creating new content all the time, all with the commitment to help us be people who know and enjoy God more fully. Thank you so much for being part of it, and we can't wait to see you next time.